So,
what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Weekly Top 5's from Library Chess Productions. And this time around, we're going back into the world of video games, which we've touched once or twice on these videos. And these are our top 5 favorite video game characters of all time. Tyler, would you agree that a good character or a bad character can make or break a video game?
Sort of.
Sort of?
I don't know. Games, I'm a gameplay first type of guy. So you could have some crap characters, I think, but if the gameplay is solid, then you can get away with it more, I think, than in any other art form.
Okay.
Not that it's not like, you don't want like The Last of Us with crappy characters. Like, that would break the game, for sure.
Absolutely.
But in general, I don't know. You put me on the spot.
I did. That was not scripted in any way. I literally put you on the spot there. But yeah, I think in any kind of storytelling medium, like you have, like, a great character can make something good great, and a bad character can make something good average. I think I'll start things off this time, and I'm going to go with my number 5 best video game character, of all time, and it's undeniable I have to give this to Mario. Mario from the Mario games. I mean, even if I didn't even necessarily think, like, is he one of my top 5 personal favorites? Nah, but maybe not, but I have to include him on the list because it's the most iconic video game character of all time. Yeah. And I think that's, like, even if he hasn't always been in the greatest games, they've still, like, I mean, him as a character, even enduring into today. So, I mean, he's had a lifespan of well over 30 years. So I have to put him there. And he's been in, obviously, the widest plethora of games, different types of games, different game mechanics, and that's still being reinvented even today. So even though he has very few lines of dialogue, I have to give Mario a spot on this list. So I'm going to give him number 5.
Yeah, no one looks at Mario and thinks, what a deep character.
Yeah, it's true.
That's why he's not on my list.
My girlfriend keeps getting stolen.
Yeah, exactly. However, even though there's not a lot of depth to his character, you cannot show me a character that makes me go as crazy as Mario. Like, any of these 5 characters I'm going to list, I love them. They're deeper characters. But if I'm out in the town and Mario pops up in somewhere, I'm being a little kid. I'm like, Mario!
There he is!
So there's no video game character that brings me back like Mario, even if he doesn't have the depth of some of these other characters. So definitely, that's why I didn't include him, but at the same time, nothing makes me fanboy more for video games than Mario. Alright, my number 5 is Ayabray? From Parasite Eve.
I always pronounced it Ayabrea.
Ayabray, Brigabrew, it doesn't matter. Parasite Eve. One of the strongest female characters in video game history, but not one that necessarily gets mentioned. Because Parasite Eve, while fairly popular back in the day, doesn't really get mentioned in general, but she was just this badass cop that was dealing with some real stuff and her body getting hot, which sounds super sexy. But yeah, she was an excellent character, so that's my number 5.
Yeah, that's totally legit, and to have that game be very much female-led. Yeah. Almost entirely, in fact, because you have her and you have the primary villain, who is also, I guess, would be considered to be female.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that game was popular at the time, and it was very much all right, well, I'm gonna do this myself, and she spent a whole game not being a shrinking violet, right? Yeah. Like, it was just like, I'm gonna upgrade the gun, let's go.
Yeah, she was like, she went to an opera with her boyfriend who was a complete wimp, or her date, I guess.
Her date.
And everything started burning, and she's just like, oh my god, what's going on? She's like, get out of the way, I got this. This whole shit is burning. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I got this gun, I'm gonna kill this thing. Like, she's just like, let's do this. Oh, this rat's turning inside out? Whatever, I got this, don't worry about it.
My number 4 video game character of all time leads us into the Final Fantasy series for the first time, and it is Vivi Ornitiere from Final Fantasy IX.
Vivi.
Vivi. So, Vivi is a black mage. And
he's adorable.
He's basically like a teeny tiny. He's like a little kid black mage. And through the course of the game, you find out that there's some psychological stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to the black mages, just as I hesitate to say race, but it's basically an allegory for race. So like the black mages as a race, and it's this character coming to terms with the things that they find out about the nature of black mages.
Yep.
And how black mages come to be, and the real like the and Final Fantasy does this all the time, explores identity crisis, and they do it in almost all of their games to a certain degree. This is one of the best ways they've ever done it, because you're almost dealing with identity crisis through a childlike character, and that makes it all the more gripping, and that makes it all the more heart-wrenching. It just trying to navigate this water of like, everything I thought I ever was is not true, and how psychologically how am I going to deal with that? And that is hands down, along with like the crystal system, my favorite part of that game. It's the fact that crystals are back, and it's the fact that Vivi's story is incredible. So Vivi Ornatier is my number 4.
I think Vivi has the best subplot in any Final Fantasy ever. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
It is so heart-wrenching. And I love how it plays on the Black Mage, like you said, going all the way back to the first one. The first Black Mage. And it kind of meta in that way. It's like, hey, remember those Black Mages from Final Fantasy 1? You could literally have 4 in a team like they were clones.
Like they were clones?
Yeah. Because you could just have a whole team of Black Mages in the first one if you wanted. I don't know why. That would be tough. But I love that. I love the Vivi storyline. I don't know why I never even considered him. Because really, he might be the best Final Fantasy character. I'd have to think about it. But
his story, for the emotional pull of his story, he's got to be up there.
Yeah, he's excellent. Excellent choice. My number 4 is Geralt of Rivia from the Witcher series. I mean, I hate to say it because I said this about the last bit, but just a badass.
Yeah.
And, at least in the games, a very moral guy, but ultimately still kind of about money to a certain extent, because that's his job. He's there to kill monsters, but, help his friends. And, I mean, mind you, The Witcher has a lot of good characters. Triss is also one that I strongly considered. But, I mean, like, I got a little statue thing of Geralt. I love Geralt. He's a deep character. He looks cool. I have something for like scars on the face.
Right.
For some reason, I don't know why, but a big scar across your eye is just super cool to me.
Okay.
And yeah, like Geralt of Rivia is one of the best characters of all time.
I feel like had I actually broken into Witcher 3, maybe I would feel, because I haven't played any of the other ones. The books are sitting there in my store ready for me to buy. I just haven't done it yet. But so I figure he probably would have been in heavy consideration on this list had I actually at least broken into Witcher 3 a little bit. But
yeah. Those games and the books are full of really good characters. So there was a few I could have picked, but I went with the main character.
Makes sense.
You spend the most time with them and whatnot.
My number 3 video game character of all time is probably, maybe even I would say, the weakest entry on the list, but apparently I have a thing for kids who go through really emotional shit in video games. Because my number 3...
Please never be a parent.
Yeah, no, apparently. Yeah, exactly. Kids that go through trauma in video games really, really get me. No, my number 3 is Clementine from the Walking Dead Telltale games.
No, I never played them.
So, yeah, and I mean, she, like, through the first 2 games, because I haven't really gotten to touch... Is the third one out yet?
I don't know.
I can't remember now whether the third one's actually even out yet, but, like, the things that Clementine goes through from the first second that you meet her in the first game, where she's just in her house with a dead zombie saying, like, oh, my parents were going to Atlanta, like, they're gonna call me when they get to Atlanta, and you're just like, they're not, they didn't make it.
I'm not gonna call you, kid.
And it just, from second one of that first game, when you first meet her, all the way through to then when she becomes your primary character through subsequent games. Her story arc and the things that she goes through and the things that she has to do. So one thing that I think those Telltale games do incredibly well is tell Clementine's story. Yeah. But again, I feel like now actually looking at this list, I feel like that's maybe the one that I can defend the least. Probably also because I've spent the least amount of time with these games. But she's just a great character for what she endures, for what she goes through. Clementine's my number 3.
I wish I could add something to it, but I don't care. I never cared enough about The Walking Dead to play the Telltale games. Mm-hmm. So, even though I hear they're probably the best stuff Telltale's done.
Yeah. Well, I have the first 2 games upstairs I can actually give you.
So, Justin, do you want, this little kid going through trauma stuff is nothing.
Okay.
Right? You want real emotional depth, a real connection to a character? Then go to my number 3, Claptrap from Borderlands. There's emotion right there. We know a couple things about Claptrap. He likes to dance. He hates stairs. That's all you need to know. Justin hates him, as you can tell. He claims to hate him, but I'm not convinced he actually hates him. I think he's just playing it up for the crowd. But I love Claptrap. I have a hoodie of Claptrap. He makes me laugh. I loved playing him in the pre-sequel. I'm just a big fan of Claptrap, and it's the first the first character I've picked in this that isn't like a main character. Although I guess technically in the pre-sequel he sort of is. Yeah. But yeah,
it's his own deal.
I'm very fond of Claptrap. I find him endlessly entertaining. And from the moment that we first played Borderlands, though, I loved him, but I always felt like something bad was going to happen. And sure enough. But that's okay. I remember playing Borderlands with you, and there would be those quests where he'd be out of oil or whatever, and you had to save him, and you'd be like, and I'd be like, we gotta save Claptrap.
I'd be like, no.
We gotta save him. So yeah, that's my number 3 is Claptrap.
Claptrap would be number 1 on my list of NPCs that I've wasted the most rockets and grenades on.
But you can't kill him.
Exactly. You can't do any damage to him, and I would literally just stand there and just empty my clips, and he would just be like,
I find him so funny. And I think it was Borderlands 2 where this other Claptrap is helping you or something.
Yeah.
And he's Claptrap is shit talking him the entire time.
Oh, God.
I love old Clapper.
My number 2 video game character of all time is one that I really, and it's like my number 1, I really heavily had to debate because it had to come from one character chosen to represent the particular game, and I had about 4 that I thought were really worthy of being chosen from this game, and I had to break it down to 1, and it's from Final Fantasy VII, and it's going to be Eris Gainsborough. And that, typically I was it came down to her and Cloud Strife, obviously.
Yeah, I'm boring. I would have went with Cloud.
Right? And it comes down to the 2. And the reason that I gave Eris, and I'm pronouncing it by the proper name Eris, not that garbage Aerith stuff.
Aerith was the Japanese.
I know, and Aerith is the proper.
I remember a magazine where, before Final Fantasy VII came out, that it was Aerith and stuff like that. And then
what is this?
This isn't it. This is... Anyway.
I have my hill to die on, and that's what it is. Before you ever get her, she knows exactly what is going to happen. She has akin to seen the future. Right before you get her, she's looking into this little pool of life stream. And that's when she kind of looks up and stands up, has her flower basket, and walks out. And that's the end of the opening cinematic.
What a great beginning.
Oh, such a great cinematic.
And then you roll in on a train.
And maybe this is exactly what people intended. Maybe I'm just I'm speaking like this is some new thing. But she knows 100% of everything that is going to happen because the live stream has literally told her.
I actually never noticed that.
And that's why she is so adamant about the first time that okay, please buy a flower from me, please buy a flower from me, da da da. That's why she's so it's almost panicky that she interacts with Cloud the first time. So taking her story arc under the prism of she knows exactly what's going to happen, she knows she's going to be a martyr. There are certain hints in her dialogue and stuff that she's still kind of coming to grips with that idea and everything that kind of happens, and how she kind of tries to deny the love story that's kind of brewing with her and Cloud, but then at times she also kind of gives into it a little bit and stuff like that. Just taking that whole thing, her whole story arc, under the prism of she knows exactly what is going to happen before the game even starts, that to me makes her such a more compelling character, because you could do the cowardly thing, and the cowardly thing is to tell someone. She has enough wisdom, even the fact that she's, not even 30 yet, I guess, in age. She has the wisdom to know, like, I can't do that. Like, the things that are going to happen have to happen, or else we lose. So the fact that she sees the future, knows she can't escape the future, and still allows the future to happen, makes her a much more compelling character to me. And again, this was incredibly close with Cloud. And if I wasn't doing that thing where I was like, I'm going to try to keep this to one character per game, Cloud would have been on this list too. But if I'm only keeping myself to the restriction of kind of one character per game, I have to give it to Eris, and she's my number 2.
I think I've been sold. I think now I would pick her over Cloud.
Yeah?
I know I said Cloud. Yeah, because I never really read her like that. And if that's true, I always read her as a really good character. She was my second favorite.
Yeah.
Good argument.
So I just, like I said, I read her as a martyr that knows exactly what's going to happen and knows why it has to happen, and so then allows it to happen. And that could be totally wrong too. That's just kind of how I read the character now. Even though she doesn't necessarily know everything about the ancients.
Yeah.
Because she's learning that stuff kind of as it goes, and then more pieces are kind of falling into place as these things are happening. So anyways, that's just the way that I read the character, and that's why she's my number 2.
Well, there you go. All right. So my number 2 is Max Payne from Max Payne.
Okay.
Because there's nothing I like more, I don't think, in a character than somebody who something really terrible happens to them, and their whole thing is that they just want revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what Max Payne's character arc is. Comes home, his family's murdered. There's some people in the house, he kills them, and then he goes and kills everyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's very depressed, but he just goes and he just kills. There's no real depth to him, especially after, how do I follow it? That Ares thing with there's just a guy with some guns and bullet time and murder. But I like a good revenge story, and Max Payne pretty much embodies that in video gaming. He's just simplistic, and it's always satisfying because of who he is. And so I've always loved Max Payne and his gruffness, and even in Max Payne 3, where he's just old at that point, just oh, not this again. He's just disgruntled. All right, I guess we're doing this again. But yeah, I love Max Payne, and it helps that I just love the games. But yeah, Max Payne.
The Max Payne games are ones that I never really got my hands on for a long period of time. I would play bits and pieces kind of here and there and be like, oh, okay, I kind of enjoy this, and then I would just never go back to it.
Yeah.
But they come very very highly acclaimed, but I just never really got my hands on one for a long period of time.
Dang.
Number 1 time, folks. My number 1 video game character of all time comes from Final Fantasy VI, and it's Shadow. I'm gonna go with Shadow. So Shadow, his backstory was he was one half of a train robbing duo, and his partner gets killed, and they were this duo called Shadow. And so his partner gets killed, and he basically goes under the mask and continuing his thieving ways, and he has the best lines in the game spoken about him. Yeah. Slit his mama's throat for a nickel and all this stuff. And the character specifically is so intriguing because they only show up at specific times.
Yeah.
If you're not smart, the character dies.
Yeah.
The character probably dies at the end of the game, but even that's still not specific. And if you don't stay in specific places at specific times, you miss all this backstory about the character and what the character's kind of gone through and what their frame of mind is. Shadow has always been, to me, the most intriguing character in that game, and we kind of had an off-camera conversation about another character in that game, Go-Go, and about all the, the theories or whatever about who Go-Go is. I have my own theory about who Go-Go is. I think Go-Go was his partner. I don't think his partner ever actually
I've
died.
seen that theory thrown around.
And that the fact that you can't identify who Go-Go actually is specifically, I'm like, okay, well, the only other real character that their fate is dubious is this character, even though it's basically said like, oh no, he's dead, but I don't think it's ever like concretely said that character's dead. Shadow, I love Shadow's story. The fact that Shadow has a dog, I'm not gonna lie, kind of plays into it. It's his best buddy,
dog.
Interceptor, and it's like, I wouldn't get too close. He bites and all this. Shadow has always been the most intriguing character to me in that game. In a game of incredibly intriguing characters.
Yep.
Celis is an intriguing character. Terra is intriguing. Sabin, I actually almost picked Sabin in this spot because it's like the story of the would-be king who denies the throne and all this stuff. Like, in a game of intriguing characters, Shadow's the one that always sticks out to me, and that's why he's number one.
Yeah, it was hard to pick. I had Shadow as an honorable mention, but I would also go with... I mean, I really like Edgar, too.
Yeah.
Because he let his brother go do what he wanted to do. Like, he rigs it, so his brother is free to go do what he wants.
Right.
It's just so...
And took the responsibility on himself.
Yeah. There's so many good characters, and Shadow is, like... You could go your whole game and know nothing about him.
Yeah, exactly.
But then if you do decide, to find out, then there's this interesting character underneath a guy that you could see is basically a throwaway character.
Yeah.
My number one is Solid Snake from Metal Gear.
Had to be.
I mean, it had to be Solid Snake because it's my favorite video game series, and I just love that character. I mean, there's a lot going on in Metal Gear, and there's been, he's trying to do the right thing, even if it means he's gonna die. And he has, like, a really tragic life, and his business with Shadow Moses, falling in love, but then losing her, although you find out he doesn't really lose her. And just, Snake is a really in-depth character. And Metal Gear is another series that has a fantastic cast of characters, and it could be anybody from the villains to the heroes that you could pick, but Solid Snake represents Metal Gear, and Solid Snake is important to me because I love Metal Gear so much. So yeah, that's my number one. Maybe I'm not saying as much about him as I have some other characters, but I love Solid Snake.
With certain characters, I think it just kind of gets to the point where it's like, it almost feels like anything you say is self-fulfilling. Like, it's like, or it goes without saying, right? It's like, well, yeah, it goes without saying that he's this and that he's this and that he's this because you've been so invested with the character, right? And I fall into that trap too. But yeah, no, he's the focal point of one of the greatest series of all time. So yeah, absolutely.
Solid choice. Now look at my snake.
Dang. All right, folks, motherfuck Claptrap. All right, folks, that's going to do it for another weekly Top 5. Like, comment, subscribe, follow us down here, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.